So Kanye is in the news once again, and this time is for something very concerning. Recently, somebody he used to work with, who I will not mention because he's not a nice person, went on Twitter and just unleashed these wild accusations that the reason why Kanye has been acting so weird lately, it's because he has been under the control of a guy who performed some kind of a dentistry on him and got him hooked on the nitric oxide gas. Okay, so apparently the procedure he had done was, if you've noticed, lately he's been walking around with these grills on his teeth, and it seems as if the grills are permanently attached to his teeth. Something like that. That's the rumor. And there are these titanium looking grills, and that must have been a very grueling procedure that required a lot of pain medication, and maybe that's why he started to get hooked on this nitrous oxide. This is something that a lot of people use recreationally. They come in these canisters. They're called whippets. And I don't know much about this, child. I've never been high. I've never done drugs, so I don't know how this goes. But I just wanted to clarify that that was the procedure that he had by this dentist that Kanye's ex-associate is accusing of hooking him on drugs and taking his money. That is given to patients when they are getting dental work done, laughing gas, I believe it's called. And Kanye is basically addicted to this substance, and this dentist apparently providing this substance to him. I don't know if this is true, considering the source, but it kind of rings true. Because we have seen Kanye's mental, you know what, I cannot diagnose him. So all I will say is we have seen his behavior get more and more bizarre over the years. And lately, we have seen him behaving in ways that doesn't even feel like him, like the person we thought he was. Maybe I should say it that way. We see him out in public with his current wife, Bianca Censori, and she's basically just walking the streets naked. And this is something that it just seems very bizarre. While Kanye walks around completely covered, sometimes he doesn't even show his face. It all seems very extreme. But I wanted to touch on this because I think there is a lesson here for us, and I wanted to touch on that. So if you're interested in seeing me break down pop culture events, please subscribe to my channel. I like to add a little bit of commentary, learn lessons from what we see in the news so that we don't just look at it as a detached thing, but that we can reach into these stories and apply lessons to our lives to make our lives better. And now let's continue with the topic. So we haven't been hearing much from Kanye lately. He recently, I believe it was last week, he released his new album, Vultures 2. And he released it out of nowhere in the middle of the night. And I guess he thought it was going to make a splash, but it just didn't. It kind of fizzled out. I haven't heard one single from that album. I haven't heard anybody talking about it, breaking it down. It seems like this one fell with a dud. And this has to be very alarming to Kanye because, as we know, the scandals he has gotten himself into have cost him some really lucrative deals. The biggest one was the deal with Adidas. And when that deal kind of went away, his net worth fell by 3/4. And I talk about this in one of my videos when I talk about how billionaires aren't really billionaires. You should check it out. I think it's a good commentary that I made. And he basically said, that's okay. I don't need them. My fan base will support me no matter what I do. So he went out and tried to do his own clothing line without the assistance of anybody in the clothing industry. Because like I mentioned in that video, the clothing industry is a very insular community. And if you offend one, you've offended all of them. And they communicate with each other and they say, if I'm not going to do business with this person, you shouldn't do business with them either. And it seems like that is what happened. Kanye had a really hard time finding a new manufacturer for his clothes, but eventually he found someone and he's been releasing things, but it's just not hitting. None of it is hitting like it used to. He released Vultures 1, and that did pretty decent. It debuted at #1. He also had a #1 hit from it. But again, it just fizzled away. We haven't heard anything more from it. We haven't seen many visuals come out of it. He's released some loose singles here and there. That whole Kendrick Drake beef that happened a month ago, that was all the rage. When that happened, he tried to insert himself and issued a diss record against Drake, but fell like a dud. Nobody cared. And now he has released his latest album in the line of the way Beyonce sometimes does it. She just drops an album without announcing, and it's all the rage, and that's all people can talk about. And this just didn't create that reaction. So he must be panicking. I don't know what his current net worth is or what it would be based on. I know that he has at least 2 pieces of property that remember when he and Kim got divorced and he bought the house across from the street, saying that he wanted to be close so he could be close to his children. Apparently he hasn't moved into that house, and the house has kind of fallen into disrepair. He had also bought a house in Malibu right on the water, and he's been trying to sell that. That's not going well because the property also is in really bad shape. He has the property in Wyoming. I don't know what's happening there. So if we're going to be basing his net worth on the properties that he owns, at least those 3, we have to look at them as terribly downgraded from their original value. I don't know what his clothing line is worth. I don't think it should be worth much because in terms of sales, he hasn't really done much. And like I said in the video that I made on him, net worths are based on estimates, on what we think is going to happen, what we think the value of something is going to be based on the projected sales, in addition to the actual inventory that exists. Well, in this case, we don't know what's happening with inventory when it comes to his clothing line, but certainly in sales, we cannot project too much on that. So I'm saying all of this to say Kanye is not in a good place. If he's looking at these numbers and he's seeing the trajectory of his once flourishing career, now things are not going the way they used to, and he has to be in a place of panic. If he is relying on substances to cope with the difficulties of life, this is a dangerous time for Kanye. Things are not going well. His personal life, it's really weird. When I saw Bianca wearing those ridiculous half-naked clothes, for a while I felt kind of sorry for her because I really thought that she was being manipulated by Kanye to dress really provocatively, to kind of create some kind of excitement and chatter around him to help him to stay relevant. But the more I think about it, and if what his old associate is saying is true, maybe I misread the situation. Maybe it is Bianca that is taking advantage of him. And I might go out on a limb here and saying, I might even think that she's doing some kind of a spell on him, that she's some kind of a witch. I don't know how else to describe it. But I do know that when somebody has an addiction, and Kanye has been very public about his addiction to corn, and the fact that Bianca is choosing to dress like literally the woman is naked. I can't even show you the latest outfits that she has been seen out and about in because I don't know how to blur. I use the most basic free editing software out there, so I don't know how to blur. And I just really wouldn't know how to cover her up. But the woman is literally walking the streets naked. And for somebody who's married to somebody who has this addiction, it is very telling that she's choosing to kind of lean into that. Because when you love someone, you want to see them elevate from their weaknesses, from their limitations, and go beyond what they thought they could do into something greater. And the fact that she is basically exploiting this weakness that he has, and that the fact that it is of a sexual nature, there's something very controlling about this. And I believe that in one of the lawsuits where Kanye was named, trying to get money from him, there was some declaration or some revelation that a lot of his assets he passed over to her into her name. That is dangerous, guys. If he is sliding into substance abuse, and if he's being mentally and spiritually probably controlled by this woman who's exploiting his weakness and his proclivity for porn, and on top of all that, the assets that he has are in her name, that is a recipe for total control. And it is sad because, a lot of these men with a lot of money, they have these beautiful women around them, and these women marry them, and they really think that they love them. Like, she married me because she loves me. If you worked at a gas station, Kanye, she wouldn't even look at you. So you have to be on the lookout for these things. It's a fair trade. You want to have this beautiful woman by your side. She wants access to the resources that you can provide for her. Just look out for that, guys, when you enter into these transactions. And don't think that there's not going to be, when you have a transaction that is based on such shallow desires, don't have high expectations and always be on the lookout for yourself. But when a person's mind has been taken over by lower things, you can't really expect much. It's really sad to see somebody who we once considered a great genius descend into this. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are speculating that ever since he lost his mom, Kanye hasn't been the same. And I believe that. It was around that time when he was with Amber Rose, go figure, that he started acting weird, and the bizarre behavior started. It was around the time when he lost his mom. And so it started with Amber, and then he went into this thing with Kim Kardashian, which continued to feed. I mean, if you look at the pattern of the women, and this is not me disparaging anybody, but these over-sexualized women, these women that were kind of feeding that weakness that he has by indulging in that, all he did was just slide further and further down into what he is today. And I was thinking about this and thinking about how sad it is that there's so many people out there who depend on substances to cope with the difficulties of life. We don't realize that facing the difficulties in life, the challenges of life, the difficult things of life, your traumas, is 10 times easier than dealing with the pain and suffering that comes from trying to avoid these feelings. The human brain, as flawed as it can be, was really designed for overcome hardships and difficulties. And the things that you think that you just can't face, that you can't cope with, that you have to numb yourself because you cannot even bear to think about these things. When you allow yourself to actually face them with bravery, with strength, you realize that it wasn't as terrible as you thought it was. By avoiding it, you put yourself into a loop that can go on for years of dysfunction and suffering and so much loss and so much damage to yourself, all because you were trying to avoid something that you probably could have overcome in a matter of weeks or months just by dealing with them, just by doing the hard work of looking them in the eyes and dealing with them. It kind of reminds me of a meme that I saw the other day on Twitter, where somebody said, it took me 20 minutes to do a task that I have been avoiding since January. And isn't that the truth? There are things that we're so terrified to face, to look into and to actually dig in and do the difficult thing of dealing with them. But when you actually do it, you realize that wasn't so bad. That didn't take as long as I thought it was. But you spent weeks and maybe months avoiding it and looking the other way. But it was still eating at you because it was waiting for you to acknowledge it. I have been rereading this book that is one of my favorite books of all time. It's called Women, Food, and God by Janine Roth. It's a really, really great read. I highly recommend it. And one of the keys in this, we're talking about avoiding our feelings. I think this quote crystallizes it perfectly. And it's from page 123. When we are bowled over by grief and our response is to eat pizza or insert anything, do drugs, do a lot of shopping, drink alcohol. When we are bowled over by grief and our response is to eat pizza, we halt our ability to move through the grief as well as our confidence that it won't destroy us. If you don't allow your feelings to begin, you also don't let it end. And that is so key in understanding that there is no grief, there is no trauma that you can't handle. It might feel this way. And you might have to explore them and express your feelings and your thoughts in a safe place if you have access to therapy or somebody that you trust, a spiritual leader, a good friend, a family member. If you can just understand that avoiding those feelings is many times worse than just dealing with it, just going down and peeling all the layers and going down and asking questions. I know this is how I feel. Is this correct? Is it accurate? Should I really feel this way? That process will be a lot easier and less painful than a lifelong of avoiding these feelings and asking these questions and accepting the reality of what is and looking forward to the future with hope, knowing that whatever happened in the past didn't destroy you. You made it, you survived, and now it's time to thrive. That is the key. That is the key to dealing with life's difficulties. And I'm sorry to say, I don't want to put it out there, so all I'll say is I don't think it's going to end well for Kanye. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know how much longer we're going to have him here. And it's because it seems like he has alienated all the people in his life that really cared about him. And he's now surrounded by all these weird characters who seem to only want to use him. And that is really sad. That makes me very sad. So I don't want to leave you with these sad words and sad sentiments. I just wanted to encourage you and tell you, face your feelings. Deal with whatever sadness and pain you're dealing with, because the avoidance is so much worse than the pain you're going to go through dealing with it. This book specifically talks about how our grief and our sadness and our trauma affect the way we eat, but you can insert any other vice that people tend to succumb to in order to avoid things. This book will help you understand that you have what it takes to heal yourself, and you don't have to wreck yourself by avoiding what you need to deal with. That was my little video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. I'm trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Is there any book that you have read that has helped you deal with things in life? Also, please share this video with others if you think this will be interesting for others to see. Also, watch some of my other videos while you're here. Thank you once again for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.